Emily had always thought of herself as a quiet observer, someone who liked her little corner of the world without making much noise. She lived in a modest brick house on a calm suburban street where the nights were usually still, the stars faint above the faint orange glow of street lamps, and the only sound was the distant bark of a dog or the hum of a passing car. Her life was simple. Work long shifts as a nurse at the hospital, come home, reheat leftovers, shower, and collapse into bed. That cycle had repeated for so long that she barely noticed the weeks slipping by. The only disruption to her routine was her neighbor across the street, Daniel. He wasn't the type to make small talk or throw neighborhood barbecues. He had a quiet presence, the kind that made him intriguing. He always wore pressed shirts, always carried himself with a sense of calm discipline, and rarely looked flustered. Emily often caught herself watching him from her window as he carried groceries inside, watered his plants, or drove off in his black SUV. He was a mystery wrapped in quiet strength. That night, after a long and exhausting shift, Emily made herself a cup of tea and sat out on her porch. The steam curled against the cool night air, and she leaned back against the chair, letting her muscles unwind. That's when she noticed the warm glow from Daniel's living room. His curtains were partly drawn, just enough for her to glimpse him inside. He was moving about, rearranging books on a shelf, pausing to straighten a crooked picture frame. He looked so utterly at peace, so unlike the blur of chaos she felt after 12 hours of dealing with emergencies. Curiosity tugged at her. She thought of all the nights she'd wondered about him, all the times she'd walked past his house imagining what it looked like inside. Maybe it was the tea warming her chest, or maybe it was the loneliness that crept in after work, but Emily suddenly found herself standing up, crossing the quiet street, and climbing his front steps. She hesitated at his door, her hand hovering over the wood, before finally knocking. The door opened almost instantly, and there he was. Daniel looked surprised at first, his eyebrows lifting slightly. But then he smiled, a warm, genuine smile that softened the sharpness of his features. "Emily, right?" From across the street. His voice was calm, measured, yet carried a depth that made her pulse quicken. She nodded, clutching her mug as if it could explain why she was there. "Yeah, sorry for showing up like this. I just noticed your light was on, and thought I'd finally come say hi." Daniel chuckled lightly, stepping aside. "You're not bothering me at all. Come in." Inside, his home was unexpectedly warm. The faint scent of cedar and books filled the air, and the decor was simple yet refined. Dark wooden shelves lined with novels, framed photos of places rather than people, and a fireplace where soft embers glowed. Emily instantly felt at ease. He gestured for her to sit, and soon they were talking. At first, it was about small things, the neighborhood, the weather, her long shifts at the hospital. But then the conversation deepened. Daniel revealed that he worked as an architect, spending most of his time drafting designs from home, which explained why he always seemed so composed. Emily found herself laughing at his dry humor, drawn in by the way he listened so intently, like her words carried weight. Time slipped away unnoticed, and for the first time in months, Emily felt like she wasn't just going through the motions of life. She thought she'd stumbled upon a rare moment, a quiet evening with a quiet man who had lived across from her all this time. She thought he was alone, and in that solitude, she saw something familiar, her own reflection. But then, the front door clicked open. Emily turned, startled, as another man walked in. He was taller than Daniel, with rugged features and a kind of presence that shifted the air in the room. His eyes immediately found hers, curious but friendly, before he glanced at Daniel. "Didn't mean to interrupt," the man said with a knowing smile. Daniel stood, unbothered. "Emily, this is my brother Mark." Emily blinked, her mind scrambling to process. She hadn't expected anyone else. She thought Daniel lived alone, that this was his quiet world and she'd been invited into it. But now Mark was here, pulling off his jacket, exuding the kind of confident energy that clashed with Daniel's calm demeanor. Before she could adjust, the door opened again. This time, a woman with auburn hair and sharp green eyes walked in, carrying a paper bag. Behind her trailed a younger man, his arms full of takeout containers. Their laughter filled the entryway before they even reached the living room. Daniel greeted them warmly, and soon introductions were flying. The woman was Claire, a longtime family friend, and the younger man was Jason, Daniel's cousin. Emily sat frozen on the couch, tea cooling in her hands, as strangers filled the space she thought was private. At first, she felt out of place, like an uninvited guest in a family gathering. But then something shifted. Mark struck up a conversation with her, teasing Daniel about his tendency to collect books like trophies, which made Emily laugh. Claire offered her some food from the takeout bags, insisting she couldn't just sit there with an empty cup. Jason, full of youthful energy, began debating movie sequels with her, and soon the room was alive with chatter, laughter, and warmth. Emily realized that Daniel wasn't just a quiet neighbor who lived alone. He was part of something bigger, a circle of people who cared about him, who filled his life with connection. She hadn't expected it, but in their presence, she found herself loosening, laughing, and sharing parts of herself she hadn't in a long time. By the time midnight rolled around, she wasn't the awkward neighbor who knocked on the wrong door at the wrong time. She was Emily, part of the conversation, part of the laughter, part of the memory that night would become. She thought he was alone, but more walked in, and in that unexpected twist, she realized that sometimes the best surprises happen when your assumptions are shattered.